we're just about to get to the big conversation, and this morning we are shining the spotlight on epilepsy. The prevalence of epilepsy is about 20 cases in every 1,000 people. About 77 new cases in every 100,000 people are diagnosed every year. And these estimates are 2 to 3 times higher than in developed countries. So what is epilepsy? What causes epilepsy? Who is at risk? How can you manage epilepsy? We'll tell you all you need to know. And of course, we are happy to take your questions on epilepsy concerns. If you'd like to share an experience with us, go right ahead on our Facebook fan page, KBC English Service, and our Twitter handle at KBC English. The hashtag is Breakfast KBC. You can also SMS us on 20154, starting with the word English. We're delighted to welcome our guest in studio this morning, C'Otieno Fredrick Nundu, who is a clinician, and Fredrick has been roping in one award after another. He received the State Commendation last year. He's also the UN Person of the Year 2020. First and foremost, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Julie. That was so amazing. Amazing research there. I didn't know you can really research that deep. And I appreciate you hosting me.
Karibu sana. Now, tell us about, first and foremost, UN Person of the Year 2020. How did that come about?
Okay, it came about when it was during the COVID-19 era. A group of researchers and students from Kenyatta University and I were involved in inventing this first African mechanical ventilator. And since it was the first one and it showed that actually it can work, and it was going to help Africa and Africans rise and help themselves, because the US and other countries had refused to sell for us ventilators. It was a big thing, and the United Nations came out to really honor us. And that's how I, alongside my friends who are 15 students, 15 researchers, came about it, and we won that. So the United Nations called us, and they awarded us, and they are happy, and they're encouraging us and supporting us with the ventilator machine. Right.
You also received the Head of State Commendation for the same thing, inventing the first ventilating machine in Africa. Like you said, we had been importing this, and some countries had actually even refused to import this to Africa or even to Kenya. So how was that moment for you?
It was a great moment. It was a great moment in the sense that if the head of state can actually come down to the youth and see what the young people are doing in this country, in the health sector, where everybody was doing a role, everyone in all sectors, whether media, whether the hospital sector, and even the common mwananchi, everybody was playing a part. So if the president can come out and actually recognize all this, I really appreciate President Kenyatta for that. And we just looking forward for greater things, because an award is not enough. Let us go ahead and effect it.
So are the machines being used already?
The machine is at the validation stage, because it is a class 3 machine. It is at now at the hospital, the university hospital, Kenyatta University Hospital. It's undergoing clinical validation, and then registration, and now mass production.
Right. So on, I think it was Tuesday or Thursday last week, we spoke with the Health CAS, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, on the show, and she was telling us one of the lessons, one of the positives that we have derived from the COVID-19 pandemic is that we have realized that we have the capacity to manufacture these things from home, that we do not have to import everything. Like you're seeing, people are manufacturing masks, and now a ventilator on the way. You're saying it's at the validation stage. But I've got to say, a lot is happening at KU. This is not the first thing we've heard from KU. What's happening, Muko?
A lot of things are happening. It's a great moment for Kenyatta University, and even generally for Kenya. Now, we realize that, like you have already just pinpointed now, is that Kenya, we have the capacity. We can do it. And I believe that Kenya is a hotbed of invention. Kenya is a hotbed of intelligence. You can see that things that we thought that could only be done in the West are being done in Kenya. And it's about believing. Just believing. Let's just have faith in ourselves. Let's believe. Not just at the university level. At all sectors, we have the ability. we have the capacity, and this is our time. Let us show the world. Let us manufacture things and sell them outside. And the things that we manufacture here are equally as good as those things that are manufactured outside, because they're meeting standards, ISO standards. They've been validated by WHO. And you can see even outside the health sector, you heard of this group that came out to make beds. They invented beds.
Yes.
And these beds are as good and as best quality as those ones that are imported. So we just need to believe in ourselves. Let's buy our own. Let's buy Kenya. Let's trust ourselves. And that's the way to go.
We also hosted a group of students who had invented hand washing machines on the show.
Very
so
good.
there's inventions and innovations everywhere you look.
Everywhere. And it's good you really follow these things, Julie. Look, Kenyans have the capacity. Kenyans have the ability. We just need the right motivation. And we also need ourselves to accept that we can do them. Look, even in the medical field, we have very great doctors in this country, very learned doctors. We don't need to rush outside to India. Remember, during the COVID era, nobody was going outside the country. And we treated our own. And people get well here. We have doctors who are very good. We are one of the most highly trained doctors. So let us believe in ourselves. Yes.
I like what you said. Kenya is a hotbed of innovations and a hotbed of intelligence.
Thank you. And that's really true.
Now, this morning you're joining us also to talk about epilepsy. I mentioned about the prevalence of epilepsy during the introduction. But before we get to that, tell us what epilepsy is. Okay.
So epilepsy is abnormal firing of the brain. Now, the brain activity, the brain controls, it's the nervous system, it's the nervous center, and it controls all functions. Think about the way I'm talking, to coordinate the words, language,
yes,
my hands, movement, all those things are done by the brain. So the brain does this through electrical activities. So it fires. So that's what we just call fires. Have you seen, like, in the sky when it is raining, there's a flash?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fire. That's a discharge of electric currents. So that's how the brain works. Now, if it works abnormally, so that it discharges too much, or it discharges in a pattern that is not right, then it leads to these convulsions that we in long term will call them epilepsy. Now I'm going to give you a difference between a convulsion and epilepsy. Now I'll start with a faint. Now, fainting is a temporary loss of consciousness. So you just seated, and then because of poor circulation of blood to the brain, you just pass out. So there's no real more activity, jerking, no. Then after a few seconds, when the circulation is better, then you just get back. It can happen when you have anemia, or sometimes in pregnancy, for example, where your hemoglobin, the blood level goes low, the capacity of the blood to carry oxygen goes low. Sometimes when you just rise up from a sitting position, then you might faint. Now that's a faint, temporary loss of consciousness. Now, if you lose consciousness and then there is jerking movement, now the loss of consciousness can last a few seconds. If it occurs just once, we just call it a convulsion. Now, it occurs just once, and we don't have something precipitating it. Maybe you did not eat well, or maybe you are sick. So an infection has invaded maybe the brain. Maybe, let me give an example of meningitis. So if you have meningitis, there's something pressing on the brain tissue, so the firing will be abnormal. So if that firing becomes abnormal due to meningitis, that is an infection, you will be unconscious, you convulse. So that's a convulsion. When you get treated, meningitis will go. Your brain goes back to normal. So you will not convulse again. Now, let's talk of now, you keep losing consciousness, and then now the convulsion that occurred once, now it occurs for the second time or the third time, and we cannot really identify what caused it. It has no unidentifiable cause. Now there, we say now you are epileptic, because the brain is misfiring. It is not due to an infection. It's not that you did not eat. Now it's just an abnormal pattern. It's not like it. there is no identifiable cause, then what we call in medicine, it could be idiopathic. That is, we don't know what's causing it. Now, it could be epileptic because it has occurred more than twice, and we don't know. It doesn't have you cannot pinpoint what caused it.
Looking at the World Health Organization data, around 50 million people worldwide have epilepsy, making it one of the most common neurological diseases globally. And nearly 80% of people with epilepsy live in low and middle income countries. Now, I know that you just said that you could be diagnosed as having epilepsy if you have these convulsions and there's no trigger. But then I'm just about to ask, what causes epilepsy?
Again, yeah, okay. So, for the seizures to occur, I'll say one, for example, in childhood, you could have gotten an infection. For example, when a mother is pregnant, the mother could get sick, a urinary tract infections, a pneumonia, and what. Now, some of these infections, if they get, they could be passed to the baby either through the placenta or during birth. Now, when this baby gets these infections could impair or could hinder the brain's functioning. There could be infection that involve the neurological system, that is the nervous system, the nerves. So it could involve the brain. So that is where you'll find, for example, a baby convulses at an early age. Now, remember that this baby still could be sick could convulse from other infections such as diarrheal diseases, the rotavirus, for example, the common diarrheal diseases that occur in early childhood. So, if they diarrhea and lose a lot of electrolytes, that is the chemicals that are used for the brain to work, the electrolytes, the sodium, the chloride. So, if they lose most of this in diarrhea and vomiting, they may end up convulsing, because these salts, if they are lost in vomiting and diarrhea, these salts are the ones that are used in the electrical system of the brain, and that is what will cause this misfiring and this convulsion. Now, we are talking about now convulsion now coming repeatedly, so that it is, you are alive, you just seated there, for example, you are presenting now, and then you lose consciousness, and then you start jerking movements, you lose consciousness for some time, and then it comes repeatedly. Now, that is epilepsy. So convulsion and epilepsy are almost like together. It's only that now for you to be diagnosed with epilepsy, it has been taking place over and over, and we cannot find an identifiable cause, like an infection is the one that has caused it, like you have not eaten, like you've lost your electrolytes through vomiting, or this. So that abnormality. Now, some causes of epilepsy are actually unknown, but we know that they can be controlled, because we know that the main thing is there's a problem in the firing of the brain.
Right. You talked about how a child, you can get epilepsy as a child, but what about adults? Because we know there are people who maybe will get epilepsy as adults. They did not have any injury or any problem as a child, or maybe develop it as an adult.
Yes. So I'll go back. Epilepsy is abnormal firing. What caused this abnormal firing? There could have been something in the brain tissue. You see, the way the brain is formed, it is inside a compartment. It is protected in there by the skull, and there are structures that really protect the brain, because the brain is the center of everything. So it doesn't want to be disturbed. Now, if an infection could find its way through the blood system, and then it crosses into the brain matter, and causes perhaps PAS. So now this is what we call, for example, we call it a meningeal irritation, or something like, let me just call it PAS. So if a PAS is forming in there, it presses on the brain tissue. So in medicine we call it a space occupying lesion. It is occupying space and pressing on the brain tissue, and therefore that area of the brain that is performing a particular function, so that one will bring a convulsion. I say that. Alcohol ingestion. People who ingest alcohol will interfere with the brain, depends on this metabolic, it generates energy. When I talk about metabolic process, how the brain generates energy to use in this firing, because it uses energy, electric energy. Now, people who have been taking alcohol for some time and then they withdraw, they have what we call alcohol withdrawal symptoms. So there's a disturbance. These people are likely also to convulse. Adults, they were not convulsing before, but now they are convulsing. Drugs. Now, these drugs could be either drugs of abuse. Now you are abusing a drug, you are smoking, or you are drinking, or you are injecting yourself. I think that. So these ones can also lead to these convulsions, and if they occur repeatedly over and over, now you become epileptic. So it's a spectrum, it's a wide range of things that can cause someone to be epileptic even in adulthood. Now, when you grow towards aging, like towards 60 years and above, you are likely to acquire this epilepsy because the nervous tissue starts degenerating, or it starts losing its well-being. So the nervous tissue starts slowing down, and that's why people start presenting with things like loss of memory. I see that because the nervous system is degenerating. I see that. So also, as you age, you can still start suffering from epilepsy because of the changes that are taking place in the nervous system, which is the brain.
You talked about convulsions, and you've taken us through what those are. Yes. But are there other signs and symptoms of epilepsy?
Mainly, the main thing for you to see or to say that somebody is epileptic, you'll see them. For example, they're just going on with their normal activity, and then they fall down, and then there are different types of epilepsy. So you see, if somebody presents when he's jerking, the limbs are they're very strong and jerking movements. Whether the hands, they could twitch, even the mouth could be twisted in a given side, and some people may urinate because the nervous system that controls now holding of the bladder now is a bit lost, and that pressing and that the muscles contracting very fast will the reflex are released, and then they could even pass stool or pass urine. Others froth from the mouth. They froth from the mouth. You see a foam that is coming from the mouth. So that is they are undergoing the convulsion. This is the epileptic attack. I see that. So the disease itself is epilepsy, but now that process is they are undergoing a seizure or they are convulsing. They're just different words that are being used. I say that. So you can see this one amongst different people. Then there are people who just they take a few seconds just convulsing even without jerking. They just lose consciousness. A few seconds, like 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and then they come back. I say that. We call those one absent seizures. Like, they are a bit absent for a few seconds, and then they regain, they come back. But they cannot remember what happened in between. And that is common for these convulsive disorders, that the person who is convulsing does not actually remember how it came about or how it went. They don't remember the event after, when just immediately before it started, and during that period they don't remember. Then I can say now, how do they come up now? When they wake up, they could wake up in different, because there are different levels of this epileptic seizures. So when they wake up, they could be confused. So they look around, they try to come in terms with what is happening in the environment. Others will wake up very tired, so they will need to rest, and most of them will go to sleep. I see that. While others, since it just took place within a few seconds and they are back, and sometimes even you didn't notice they convulsed, and then they just continue again with their activities. So it occurs at different levels. So
even these few seconds, there's still someone who will wake up feeling very tired.
Yes. They can still feel very tired, because remember, as human beings, we are different. We have different metabolic processes going on. Even the way we react to situations, we react to diseases, we react to stress, we react differently. So different people react differently afterwards.
Just before we go for break,
Yes.
what should a person do if maybe someone who has epilepsy gets a seizure or a convulsion and you're around? Because I know some people believe in holding that person tightly. Others just rush with a spoon. I don't even know why they just rush with a spoon and put it in their mouth. What should you do?
Yeah. sorry about that. Now, two things. One, to the person who, if you know you usually undergo seizures, what should you do? And if somebody or your mate or your child or your parent undergoes these seizures, what should you do? So for the person, if you know that you are epileptic, inform your mates, inform your friends. Because the problem they usually have is, how will these people react when they see me convulse? Because I'll convulse, but I don't have a problem because I know after that I'll be okay. Because after that they usually wake up and they continue with their activities. So how will these people react? And that is what really disturbs them. And even students when they go to school, which I may talk about it later. Yeah. So what you just tell your friends that I usually convulse, and in case it happens, this is part of the education now, you remove the things that are around. And this is what you should do now. The question, I've put them together now. This is what you will do. What this person is telling the friends or the people around them, what they will do, and you also when you will be around, this is what you should do. You remove things that are around that might injure them. Remember, they have just fallen down and they are kicking and they are jerking. So first is safety. Ensure that this person is in a safe place. So remove things that might hurt them. Sharp objects, hard objects, if they can be removed, to get them out. If they are chairs, remove them so that there is space when it's jerking. Do not strain them or constrain them. You must keep calm. Don't shout, don't do what. Just keep calm. Help them lie on their side. Preferably let them lie on the left side, where the side of the heart. The heart is usually on the left side. So let them lie on their side. When they lie on their side, in case they are frothing or liquid is coming from the mouth, or there's a bit of vomiting, it can come out through the side, the angle of the mouth, so that it can come out so that they don't inhale it, which could choke them. But do not put things inside their mouth or their tongue, because one, it could cause more injuries to the person, because the jerking movement, even the mouth is involved. It's so tight and there are a lot of forces there. These people will not swallow their tongue, because what I'm told in the clinics and outside there is that they put the spoon there to prevent them from swallowing their tongue. They will not swallow their tongue. So just keep calm. Remove any baggage. If they had any baggage on their back or something, remove them. You may unzip their shirts. You may unbutton their shirts to give them adequate air supply. And then things that might strangle them in their neck. If they had a tie, loosen up the tie or just remove it, because it might actually strangle them. And then just keep calm. After a few seconds, they'll be okay. So most of the time, they don't really need to be rushed to hospital. But in case, if it goes to an extent that it goes too long, if it's taking too long, like up to 5 minutes, past 5 minutes, this person is still convulsing, there you'll have to call an emergency number, call an ambulance, call a doctor, or seek help. Generally, that's what you're supposed to do.
If you're just joining us on The Big Conversation this Monday morning, we are shining the spotlight on epilepsy, and we're telling you all you need to know about epilepsy. When we come back from the break, we talk about whether these seizures could be controlled. The WHO estimates that up to 70% of people living with epilepsy could live seizure-free if properly diagnosed and treated. And we'll also talk about the issue of stigma and discrimination, as well as your questions on matters to do with epilepsy on our Facebook page, KBC English Service, and our Twitter handle at KBC English. SMS us on 20154. Start with the word English. This morning our guest is C'Otieno Fredrick Nundu, who is a clinician, and we are back with the big conversation. And we continue with the big conversation. And this morning we are shining the spotlight on epilepsy with C'Otieno Fredrick Nundu, who is a clinician. Fredrick, is epilepsy contagious? Can one person transmit epilepsy to another person?
Thank you very much for that question again, Julie. Epilepsy, you cannot transmit epilepsy to your friend. be it through sexual or through blood transfusion or what. We cannot transmit epilepsy because epilepsy itself is not an organism. So we are not transferring organism from one person to the other one. So I'll go back to it. What is it? Abnormal firing of the brain. So it's just electrical discharge that is not normal. When the activity of the brain is not normal, when the way it is releasing the current, then that is what will cause it. So you are not going to infect your friend. And that's why you should go out and help them and do not stigmatize them. Because when they lie down, for example, people fear that when they are down, they are convulsing. If you go and touch them, you will also become epileptic. That is wrong. That is not true. That if you touch their urine, because sometimes they urinate or they pass stool or they may pass mucus in their mouth frothing, it will not give you epilepsy. So do not fear to help them when they convulse. Do not stigmatize them. Do not see it as witchcraft, because it is not witchcraft. Remember, epilepsy is as old as man. And if you allow me, Julie, I'm not a pastor, but I can tell you, even in the Bible recognizes a case of epilepsy. Yes. Where there's this man in the book of Matthew 17. Yes, Matthew 17. If you read the King James Version, there's a man who comes and tells Jesus that, help my son, have mercy on my son. He convulses. 7 times he falls on fire and out of fire into water. I see that. So this epilepsy has been here for a long time. And even the Quran itself, if I had time, I would have read for you. The Quran also recognizes a case where a person went to the Holy Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Muhammad, to ask him to have mercy on her. It was a lady. To ask the Prophet to have mercy, to pray to God that he may be healed of this epilepsy. So epilepsy is as early as man. It started a long time ago. And it's not like people were infecting each other. It is abnormal firing of the brain. Now, I must mention this, that in your family, if there's somebody who is epileptic in the family tree, then you are likely, and I'm not saying you will be epileptic, but you are likely to be epileptic because it has a way in which it can be passed down the family tree through the genetic tree. I say that. I'm not saying you must have it, but in the family tree, whether your grandfather had it, or your father or your mother, but not your husband, somebody you are related with blood. I say that. Yeah. Somebody you are related with blood, you're likely to have it. Now, your spouse, I've heard of marriages breaking because somebody gets married and realizes that the partner is actually epileptic, and when they convulse, they fear, they leave the marriage and they go. The marriage is broken. Just persevere. This is something that you cannot pass to your fellow, and this is your partner. Support them, because it will just be for some time and then it goes. But I must mention here at this point that this person who is convulsing should seek medical intervention. That one will come later. I'll talk about it perhaps later.
In fact, I was just about to bring that up, because you've talked about extensively about stigma and this not being, witchcraft, some of the myths, like, putting a spoon or any other object in a person who's convulsing in their mouth. Let's talk about how you manage epilepsy. WHO says that up to 70% of people living with epilepsy could live seizure-free if diagnosed and treated. So not all cases of epilepsy will result in seizures.
That is correct.
But also that has to do with how you manage it. So take us through the management of epilepsy. So
management of epilepsy first starts from diagnosis. And the first person to realize this diagnosis is actually not the doctor, but perhaps if it's a baby, it's the mother. The mother noticed that this baby is convulsing, that what is happening to this baby is not normal. So the mother rushes the baby to hospital. So that's where it starts. So the mother actually was the first to suspect and diagnose. So then it proceeds to the doctor. Now, when I receive this patient, if it's an adult or a child, I rely heavily on history because I was not there.
Yes.
And that is now very important because the information that you will give me will help me to know what I'm dealing with, to differentiate it from just somebody who passed out because of poor feeding. I say that. That what we call a faint. And to know again, because we usually classify these convulsive disorders. We usually classify them, and the classification will determine how they are managed. I think that I'm not going into the classification because it is more scientific, but I'm just telling you that the way you'll tell us what you saw, and this is very important. If you can, after helping the patient, the person who fell down and is convulsing, and you removed the things that could have hurt them and that to ensure safety, you've unbuttoned the shirts, you've removed the tight things in the neck so that they do not get strangled. I say that. You've done all that, and you observe, clearly see what is happening. If you can record, because we are living in a world of technology. So get out your phone and record. It will help in explanation so that you don't skip important information. So that the doctor will want to know, was it tonic-clonic? Was it really jacking? What was it associated with? And then the duration. How did it last? How long did it last? Then you tell us if it is the first time it is occurring. Then you tell us now the circumstances. Perhaps this person took poison. Perhaps this person was taking alcohol and is on with. So you tell us all this information: alcohol withdrawal, using other drugs. I see that. So do not hide. And this one I'm telling. This is a public health message to all of us, and thank you very much again for hosting this, because this is a chance in which we have a chance to tell the society, we tell the community that we as doctors, we are out to help. Medical professionals are out to help, but we rely on information from you and try to be as truthful as possible. Do not hide information. We are not going to stigmatize you. We are out to help, and that's why you've come to us to help. Now, after diagnosing this person, we have to rule out what could have caused it. So there are tests. So expect us to do a few tests in hospital. We'll start with the most basic thing. We want to do the blood sugar to know, did this person eat? Is the blood sugars too low? I see that. Then we want to screen for infections. Now, this part is very important again. I want to talk about mothers' prenatal care, antenatal care, before they are born, before the baby is born, during pregnancy. I would advise all mothers outside there, and even fathers, to support the mothers so that it is a couple, that they all go to hospital when they get pregnant, so that the antenatal care is taken care of.
Yes.
Part of the antenatal care, there are specific tests that must be done, and we call it antenatal profile. Specific tests that must be done in all hospitals, even if it's a dispensary or what. Put there, laid down by Ministry of Health and a WHO. I see that. Part of the screening, we screen for infections. The mother's infections, maternal infections, can pass to the child. And during early days, these infections will impair because the nervous system is developing early. I see that. So if there is a problem, they develop this nervous system, this child might end up later on when they are born, they'll just be convulsing. They'll have epilepsy. And it's something you'll have prevented. You have urinary tract infections, which are maybe common in pregnancy because they keep recurring. I see that. Those ones are supposed to be corrected. They're supposed to be treated. Then we screen for things such as syphilis. I say that because syphilis may attack the nervous system, and syphilis sometimes doesn't have symptoms. I say that. So we actually get it by chance, and when they go and attack the nervous system, and the brain is made up of the nervous system. So later on in life, you wonder why my baby keeps convulsing, only to find out later that this baby actually had neurosyphilis. Syphilis had attacked the nervous system while in the uterus. The baby is born, is just undergoing convulsion. We don't know what is happening. I see that. So it is very important that the mothers go to hospital to to be screened. Now when they come and then we realize now that this person, there are also another test that we call electroencephalography. That is, they check the electrical system of the brain. Now that one is done by specialists. I say that the neurologists. So they go and check how they go and check the activity of this brain, how it is working. Is it normal? Is it abnormal? And then now drugs come in.
Yes.
Now drugs help to normalize this activity. And it is important again at this point, when you are given drugs, please take them according to the way the doctor has said.
Mm-hmm.
Do not stop taking them. Because when you stop taking them, the brain activity will be confused and go back to the way it was discharging. Mm-hmm. And you've had even up to 70% of people live very well with epilepsy. By the way, it is not going to impair your life as long as you're under treatment and you are under checkup. And there are people who go, if you are under drugs and you go up to 2 years without convulsing, then we reduce the dosage slowly, what we call tapering down.
But you should not stop taking medication because you've gone 2 years without a convulsion.
Very good. Let the doctor do it for you until the doctor tells you, now it is enough. We have followed you up for 2 years or more. We have tapered down the drugs, because we don't just remove the drugs again at once. So we reduce the dosages and frequencies within weeks until we realize, then we tell you, now we'll be seeing you perhaps after this number of weeks, you can now stop.
Speaking of drugs, and just before we wrap up the conversation, how expensive is it to manage epilepsy?
Yeah, that question is a good question. It can really be expensive because you realize that some of these people who get these problems come from low socioeconomic status. And even the factors around them predispose them to these things. Mm-hmm. The struggles of life, they hardly go to hospital, and I thank God again. We thank this government for the NHIF system that helps to bring these people to hospital. I see that. So it can really be expensive if you don't have a health fund. And the comprehensive care that is coming up, we hope that is going to care of all this. But without the comprehensive care, if you don't have source of income, there are people who don't have even what to eat to educate the masses. You can always call on me any other day.
Be sure we will.
So that we can talk and educate the masses so that we have a healthy nation.
Right. So my guest this morning, C'Otieno Fredrick Nundu, a clinician, taking us through epilepsy.